olina hoteri, olina embaga, olina urumbe, olina buli kalonde yona ngo yagala bagutere ku Zoom, YouTube wamu no ku Facebook. Yagala kugamba nti Haiti TV basobola okubeera nga batukolerako bulungi nnyo, balina kamera ennungi nkambwe, balikirya nnyo, bamanyi kibakola, eby'oluzungu, eby'oluganda, eby'olunyankole, buli kalonde yona baguteerako buteezi. N'olwekyo mukwano gyaffe tusubga yangwa mangu.
Haiti TV, empowering you.
Such a debate is hampered, tainted with any estoppel, it amounts right now, Speaker, to an act of rascality by the House. It will amount to a haram act of political gambadoism. Right now, Speaker.
Fred Mukasa Mbidde, born 15th October 1974, is a Ugandan lawyer, mass communication specialist, motivational speaker, and politician. He's an elected member of the 3rd East African Legislative Assembly, Yala, representing the Republic of Uganda. He has been in this office since June 2012. He serves on 3 IARA committees: the Committee on Communication, Trade and Investments, the Committee on Legal, Rules and Privileges, and the Committee on Regional Affairs and Conflict Resolution. He is the chairperson of the Committee on Communication, Trade and Investments. He is a member, a former chief legal advisor, the chairman Masaka District, and the current national vice president of the Democratic Party, DP. He is also a member of the Pan-African Lawyers Union and the Coalition for an Effective African Court on Human and People's Rights, African Court Coalition. He first gained prominence in 2001 when serving as the guild president of Makerere University. He played a significant role in Save Mbidde riots that took place in Uganda in the year 2007. Also, Mbidde played a noteworthy role in 1994 Liberation War of Rwanda. He is the patron of Mbidde Foundation and the reigning Attorney General for Kochi Chiefdom. Mukasa Mbidde attended Nachenyi Primary School, a school where his mother taught for his primary education, and Kaboko High School for his middle school education. He attended Masulita Boarding School and Kampala High School for his high school education. He attended Makerere University and Law Development Center for his higher education. He holds a mass communications degree and law from Makerere University and a postgraduate diploma in legal practice from Law Development Center.
Haiti TV, empowering you.
Yes, thank you very much. For the last 2 days, we've been telling you that we should be able to host Honorable Mukasa Mbidde. Most of you call him Koto in the Hohu and all those words. The clip you just watched is a summary of who he is, but anyway, that's what Wikipedia could give us. We only have a chance that tonight he's going to actually to be sharing his story and what he has done for Uganda, and maybe something that you can actually pick from him. I am Sankara Ruhanga and you're watching HTV. Faces of Uganda is the show. We're going to have this short one. When we come back, I should be able to introduce to you our guest tonight.
In my opinion, that is what my professor friend of mine once said, that is what you get when you, the hobo, pejoratively hobnobs with a hobo. For me, I will not koto in their pohu. Now, in 2017, I was actually contesting for guild presidency at Mara University of Science and Technology, and the guy that won that year, Turije Brian, I'm sure you're watching this because I told you about it. Turije Brian used a slogan that he won't koto in the administration's pohu. And only that gave him votes, and the general became a good president. But I know that was a quote from Honorable Mukasa Mbidde, Fred. From being a good president at MUK to fighting for Mbidde,
to go to Rwanda and cause some peace there, becoming a vice president of the Democratic Party, the ideology party, a friend to UID, and Iyala seat honorable of the people of Masaka. I think I've made it in life, meeting you in this episode. You could say hi to the viewers and we should be able to get rolling.
Thank you, my brother. Viewers, I equally greet you.
Yes. So, Honorable, when we posted that we are going to be hosting you, thanks to Ronald of Pastor Willie.
Yes.
Everyone said they wanted to hear the English. But most importantly, the story was, I want to know where he started his primary from, because usually when you make any mistake in any English statement, they're always going to say wasomedawa. But let's get to that mpola. We should be able to build from the childhood days of yours,
Okay.
and we'll build slowly by slowly. You're welcome.
Thank you. Incidental, obviously,
Yes.
at the risk of disappointing you, viewers,
Yes.
I did not go to any of the schools you speculate I have gone to. I am a village born. I am born of teachers, both mom and dad. I was born in school, so all I know is books. I did not do a lot of skedaddling into what actually most young people go through.
Yes.
I did not personally. The schools that I personally envied during my childhood, I am happy. I have visited now most of them, but as a guest of honor. And I think that one must go a long way into telling all of you, the viewers, the young people who think you have not made it to the schools that otherwise you would have to. This must now tell you that wherever you are, just maintaining your focus will go a long way into illuminating your future course. And I can tell you, you'll do whatever you want.
Let's look at the dream you had. I understand, just like you said, the school was not those that we actually ever dream of getting to. What was your dream at the time? Though, Honorable, you seem to answer politically, we could roll to the village.
Yes.
To Papa and Mama, a little bit of that, and the school itself. Yes.
My father had, the late father of course, had always been the headmaster of certain schools, which I am going to mention here. My mother was a teacher, and I think, government teachers at primary level would definitely be crisscrossing the length and width of the country as and when they are posted by the ministry. I was born at Nachenyi. Nachenyi is just here in Lwengo. That is where my mother was teaching primary one. I think, because now that one is a story told to me.
Yes.
I cannot confirm, I can't vouch for it. But afterwards, to my very proper recollection, my father was then now the headmaster of Chiwomia Primary School. Now Chiwomia is in Kalungu East.
Okay.
That is where I got to terms with the critical and proper understanding. Still, I hadn't yet joined school because I was at we did not have nursery school education during that period. It wasn't as substantial and substantive as it is today. So I joined primary one at Bukona. Now they call it Chiziba Primary School, just here in Masaka. That's where I did my primary one to primary 7. I think we got around 4 first grades and mine was one of them, primary 7. Okay. Then I went to Kabuko Secondary School. Now that is where I completed my senior 4, the period within which then it became incumbent that some of us were mobilized. It was some kind of panjandram. It was not really that we wanted to go to Rwanda and do this. It was just a major kind of peer mobilization for things that we did not know. We made our participation to levels that actually culminated into peace in that country.
Okay.
To the extent that now when we returned, we joined the primary 5, 6. Now that is where I tested boarding school for the first time. At Masulita boarding school. I did my senior 5, but senior 6, I completed it at Kampala High School. Now that is when I went to Kampala. So of all the schools being, of course, contemplated by most of those people, that is where I went.
Yes.
I did not go there. Most of them, I visited them. Either when I was in competition, for example, Chiswera here is one of those schools I really visited. I ought to have studied. But we've only met several schools there in a debating competition that I won, personally. Budo King's College, that was when I was still pursuing my divinity, because I did the literature in English, economics, and geography. Of course, stroking it with the divinity. Now, we had a paper 4 competition at King's College, Budo. They were surprised to see somebody presenting on a question that has been given without any reference point. I did not have anything I was referring to, and I think I was one of the best, again, presenters. Now that is where it was a conglomerate of all schools that I had personally heard of. So, but most of
them that you met,
most of the OBs and the OGs of those schools that actually were so good and monumental, we met at Makerere when I now became their president.
Well, that is way later. When you visit Wikipedia, they're going to say you're one of those that were in Rwanda for that liberation. And I thought before we get into the career side of your story, because you seem to have gone to Rwanda before you finished school.
Of course, yes.
What was it? What happened? And all that, yes.
It was just some kind of peer mobilization. At the time, it became incumbent that it was fashionable for all those leaving school, for example, in senior 4, that would go for they call it chair.
Yes.
That was the guys that had been generated by Javaika and some other fellows, until it eventually culminated into a training session that landed us into the activities that we conducted. Part of which I think I am not at liberty to divulge here.
Okay.
Yes.
We leave that to the issues of those that fought. You moved to Makerere University. Did you enter the university with a dream of becoming a lawyer that we see today? Or if we could connect a few memories way back in your childhood, if actually there's anything that connects with what you are today?
Yes and no. It is particularly a hodgepodge of ideas. When you are now supposed to look at what I wanted to become and what I have eventually become, I had thought myself as a doctor. And clearly, the school that I went to assisted, of course, obviously, in terms of paying school fees by my uncle, popularly referred to as Mzee of the time. He was one of the proprietors of Ngabo newspapers with the Mutaka Grace Semakula. Now, those are, that one is my uncle, of course, on the mother's side. But when we eventually landed at school, I was told that clearly here we don't offer sciences. You are only at liberty to select from a list of the arts that you had to choose and begin pursuing in the circumstances. Finally, what happened was, I obviously now for law. But during that period, 1999, the Department of Mass Communication had just been created. Now, that was carved out of one of the subjects that had been pursued by several people as a matter of 311, 3 what. It was part of Faculty of Arts, but now it had become a substantial department of mass communication. To the extent that when one applied, the points being considered for law were the same as those considered for mass communication. So I did not know I had been admitted at Makerere, because when I checked at the Faculty of Law, I didn't see my name. After 1 month, I recollected that my second choice was mass communication.
Yes.
Then I went and found that I was 1 month late. That is when I now joined the Department of Mass Communication. So when I became guild president, I was pursuing a degree of Bachelor of Mass Communication, Makerere University. That is when I graduated in 2003. From the graduation grounds, I just drove straight to the Faculty of Law to pick application forms for the degree in law. Yes, of course I was okay at that time. Despite the fact that part of the things I had done in life included having been a vendor before of newspapers.
Yes.
So I did not believe in having no money. For me, that was a principle. I believed in wealth. I believed in having the capacity to partake of all the demands that I actually had in terms of settling the same. And that is a principle I have moved with throughout. Those that know me, even at Makerere, I think some people even voted for me because of the car I was driving, others because of the English, others because of how I looked on the campaign poster.
Did you
and I clearly won.
Was your diction as strong that time?
Of course. This English thing, I imagine, started way back when I was still doing my secondary education. We had a craze. We were 3 people. We referred to ourselves as the dandyfying. Now, part of the things that we actually knew, we knew all the dictionaries, I can tell you. We were reading them like, and even cramming. We would speak close to 10 words, each meaning the same.
Specifically to confuse people?
No, it was a craze of the time. A lot of people developed craze during that kind of period time. Ours was the English language. Others drink, others womanize, others do all sorts of cataclysms. Now for us, ours was about English.
Yes.
And we refer to ourselves as Dande. So, and for me, I think that one generated, I did not know it was creating a background for me. If I wanted to speak for 40 minutes with a view that nobody understands what I am saying, I can do it. If, however, I am called to, for example, deliver a speech, I cannot speak for purposes that they don't understand. Sometimes I use such words.
Just like we are doing right now.
Yes, I use such words to indicate to Uganda that it is not true that you know everything.
Yes.
There is a world of stuff that is not known to all of us. And there is clearly a lot that one needs to continue studying. The English language itself is clustered in 3. You can be eloquent.
Let's learn. Eloquent.
Eloquent, simply because you speak the English language in such a way that everyone understands and you are actually correct in terms of all grammatical and syntactical expressions. You are eloquent. Now, that is understood by all Europeans, whether they went to school or not. But there is another cluster of the English language that can't be understood even by a European if that European did not test school education.
Okay.
Now that is the grandiloquence. That is now the second cluster.
You need to repeat that.
Now the grandiloquence.
Okay.
Now there is a cluster that even when you went to school, it clearly now takes some other urge to study and some extra effort for you to understand. Once one has spoken. Now that is the magniloquence. Now that is where you speak in such a way that very few will understand what you are talking about. Now it's not advisable that you use such. Except if the message you want to lay is that you know that they don't know.
You're decoding it, you're encoding it for them. Okay.
Now, clearly people think that all communication is about, that the message is about what you are communicating. not all communication is intended to be understood. There is a message when you don't understand that is also embedded in what one has communicated.
If such a debate is hampered, tainted with any estoppel, it amounts, right honorable Speaker, to an act of rascality by the House. It will amount to a haram act of political gambadoism. Right honorable Speaker.
Clearly the message that one is better than you. Now that one you don't need to understand. When you don't understand my kind of lucubrations or adumbration, the meaning is that I have told you, frankly, without even expressly saying it, that I am better in this. A lot of other people are better in a lot of other disciplines. And I think people need also to know. Another thing is that Ugandans need to read. A lot of people don't read. What has now improved the reading culture of Ugandans is the WhatsApp.
Yes.
At least now everybody reads some paragraphs per day. Now that never used to happen.
Yes.
Because very few people used to buy newspapers. Others would buy them and fold them in betwixt their own Bibles, and they would not read them up to the next day. Until now, new ones are issued. But today, everybody reads, everybody writes. Now, what we are going to be mindful about is the content. Now, content is going to be the problem in Uganda and in the whole world, not only Uganda, because now media has mysteriously forced itself into a social phenomenon. They call it social media.
Yes.
Now, people don't know that actually that is the same as what others used to read as the Monitor newspaper.
Just that this time it's
the same. This one now is digital. The other one used to be physical, paper form.
Okay.
So Ugandans need to read a lot if they are going to be communicators.
Okay.
Yes.
If you want to be communicators, you already got your lessons. I hope you're watching this episode with your pen and paper, because some of you told me you want to prove whether the words actually exist in the dictionary.
They do. They all.
Exactly, yes.
I remember the time I you know, people don't know why I do certain things. I remember the time when I was competing for this term of office, practically, the final term as a member of the East African Legislative Assembly.
Yes.
When people are looking for votes, by all necessary conformity, you go to where they are. So you look for those with the vote, ask for it, to the extent that now when they vote for you, you again win. So I went to Masindi. There was a celebration where all members of parliament had converged. You remember?
Yes.
Now, I think that was a celebration. I think so. There was a celebration, a government celebration. Usually, in Uganda, celebrations that are national in nature, but because they are going to be presided over by President Museveni, leaders of opposition parties don't attend. Now, I went to look for votes because that is where the members of parliament were. But I was also equally the vice president of DP, a party on the opposition.
I think that was a few moments he said.
Now, when
DP.
And clearly the reason why he said it was because for the first time he saw a leader of a political party on the opposition standing on the podium. Then he concluded that now this one I think is good. Now, you don't know what that statement did. All the members of parliament that had even denied me a seat in the tent, after that statement, they all now confirmed that they are going to vote for me. And you see, they are the majority. So now, I was caught between two, what they usually call a rock and a hard place. What do I do? Because the statement he made politically was counterproductive in the general phenomenon.
It had a lot of debate, you know.
It generally had an inclination.
Headlines, yes.
It generated at the subconscious level of brains of all opposition Ugandans. It generated an image of somebody who is actually movement related. but who is actually vice president of DP. Now, me, I had benefited from it because all members of NRM then decided they will vote for me. So the media comes to me asking. So you have now a choice. When you bash the understanding that had been created amongst voters as untrue, then you're running the risk of losing the vote itself. But when you accept again what it is, you're running the risk of again being understood as if you have generally backtracked what we usually call skedaddle from the laid out path of opposition politics. Now, what I had to do was to speak in such a way that nobody would understand what I'm saying. That is when I raised the one. Those that had wanted me to resign from the vice president, I said, no, I do not say that is what you get. The kind of reasoning that they are trying to move with is what they get. When those, the hobos, a hobo is generally somebody.
Very big one.
Yes. Is a poor person, a weakling, somebody that deserves to be
sort of cared for.
Cared for. When you, the hobo, you pejoratively hobo-nob. Now, the hobo-nob, for me, I find it a simple word. It's simply trying to move along with somebody.
Let's break it down.
Trying to assimilate, to attach oneself to another. Trying to think as if you are in the same camaraderie with such a person.
Kind of alazite.
So when you hobnob with a hobgoblin, now a hobgoblin,
okay,
you can understand a hobgoblin as a predator, something that can devour you, something that can eat you up, something that can swallow you. So you get the point. So those are the things I said. That's what you get when you, the hobo, pejoratively hobo-nob with the hobgoblin. You tell them, I'll not koto in their poho. Now,
and the whole audience went mad.
Now that became now the buzzword. And when that became now the news, they all forgot about what had happened. And I sailed through. So after being voted for, obviously I retreated back to my own deep nest. And we started working. Now, that is the intent of that communication was achieved. When you communicate and they don't understand, sometimes you achieve. Now, those that followed my campaign in Makerere University in 2001, 2002,
yes,
I think I was voted for because we were 12 candidates. But I was the only candidate that spoke what they never understood.
Did you belong to any party at the time?
Yes, it was the Democratic Party. Still. Now, I was the only candidate that spoke what they never understood. And that is why I was voted for. So if you asked any student at the time why they voted for me, clearly it wasn't about what I had promised to do.
It was about telling them what they want to hear. And
what they didn't know. Clearly speaking to them to the extent that nobody understood. Simple.
Creating a situation so and so is really a leader greater than you. And
of course, Makerere University being what it was, it is an intellectual base. So whoever sounded more an intellectual was voted for. I won every polling station. And we created a history because people from central Uganda, the Baganda, were clearly never voted for a very long time. And I had to break that curse during that period. I was voted for by all regions. Yes.
2001 is another big year for Uganda and Uganda's politics. By the time I know, Makerere usually gets to be, a boiling point in the national politics.
Yes.
And I think that's when Chiza Besigye came on board.
That is very true.
Where were you? And
in fact, that period, I remember that is when we developed some bit of inconsistencies between me and Dr. Besigye. Because he launched a manifesto of the son of one of his colleagues at the time, who was the national chairman of FDC, Mr. Njuba. The son was called Njuba, who stood against me, but I defeated him. Every student told Dr. Besigye, we support you, but we support this one for being the president. And I think that generated some some bit of animosity between us that later on I think got addressed during the politics that followed. Yes.
So at the time you were
DP still, Uganda Young Democrats.
So in the national politics, you were campaigning for DP.
Yes, we even campaigned because as the Democratic Party we supported Dr. Besigye during that time.
Yes.
But you remember also that parties were not, except the old parties that had been registered, they were in abeyance. There was the infamous Article 269 that was to the effect that it was the movement system of governance. But ideally, us would still be identified as members of Uganda Young Democrats that had affiliated themselves to DP. So our parties were known, and we would still move under that umbrella.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We are going to have this short one. When we come back, we have more from Honorable Mukasa Mbidde.
Bananga bami n'abakyala naze kubanyonnyola nti bw'obanga olina omukolo gwonna gw'olina oyagala kuyingira ennyumba olina ronchi gy'okola olina bwoteri olina embaga olina ulumbe olina buli kalonde yonna ng'oyagala bagutere ku Zoom, YouTube wamu ne ku Facebook. Njagala kugamba nti Aite TV be basobola okubeera nga bakikolerako bulungi nnyo balina kamera ennungi nkambwe balikirya nnyo bamanyi kibakola eby'oluzungu eby'oluganda eby'olunyankole buli kalonde yonna baguteerako buteezi n'olwekyo mukwano gyaffe tusubwa yangwa mangu.
Aite TV, empowering you.
In case you just joined us, what you see on your screen is actually true. The man I'm sitting next to is Honorable Fred Mukasa Mbidde. Honorable, we stopped in 2001 and the politicking around there, you became a guild president. The hardest question is always what you did for the people at the time. But, well, I don't know.
Yeah, we really did some.
Yes.
I think I led a period that was out of strikes. During my term, we did not have strikes, incidentally, because I adopted a principle of 2 words, and I explained it to the University Council after swearing in.
Yes.
I told them I have come, but there are 2 words: logic and force. I will always employ the force of logic in order to solve a problem, but once that fails, then I will use the logic of force. And I would tell them that they are at liberty to choose which one they should always press at the time.
And I want to think a regime before and a regime after all had strikes.
They all had. It was only mine that did not. And during my time, I remember as a student of mass communication, all I would think about at the time was one, a radio station, which we established at the time. That was the time we established the Department of IT. Now that IT, I think the first dean being Professor Baliamule, but at the time I don't recollect properly. Then we also, of course, we had succeeded a regime of Honorable Asmani Basaliwa, who had been the guild president then, that had been punctuated with the death of very many people. So we took a decision for erecting a perimeter wall throughout around Makerere University.
The one we see today?
Yes, the decision was taken that time, and you can imagine it is getting completed now. Then we used to have hall guards, people that would guard the halls. They were generally peremptory guards that were funny. I made a statement before the University Council that these people are the first ones to sleep. Under the guise of taking cover, they just sleep. Others were too old, they would not even catch a tortoise. Others wouldn't even see at night. So we said, no, ideally, if we don't establish our own guards, trained by police, then you are now sending me to do my own training of those that I feel should guard Makerere University. Now that is when we agreed. The Minister of Internal Affairs at the time was the Honorable Gunda. We went into a meeting. The IGP at the time was General Katumba Wamala. So we held a meeting and we agreed that a recruitment be done, and we generated what we called the Jeshi la Makerere. I even suggested that their uniform should be green, as a DP. Now those are the people who see guarding Makerere. Yes. So
Yes, I
I think
understand.
we really did some work. Yes.
Okay, we are going to move a little bit faster. You're talking about Mascom.
Yes.
We know you as a lawyer. How did you end up there?
Now, and incidentally, this is after I told you that after on graduation ground, I took a decision that I would only drive again. After graduation, I drove to the Faculty of Law to pick application forms in order to apply to begin studying law. So after the 3 years of mass communication, I never had even a gap. I enrolled again for law. 4 years.
Okay.
And the LDC being the 5th year. So that is what I did. But the desire to become a lawyer was generated by two major occurrences. The first occurrence was that during my first year, I started a newspaper. I actually bought a newspaper which had been on the market. It was called Financial Times, which we changed to Financial Trends. Employed a few of my classmates. We started a newspaper, but that was the time when another newspaper had started called the Red Paper. At the time, their major preoccupation was nude pictures and generally writing stories about sex and
Yes.
and you would find that the majority of Ugandans would only buy those. So when I discovered that actually after we had lost the MTN adverts, it became very hard for me to sustain the newspaper. We sold it with my colleague, with a colleague of mine, and we started a radio in one of the neighboring countries that we shall talk about later. So when I discovered that actually it was going to be hard for me to run a newspaper, I discovered the degree I have studied may not do a lot for me. That's when I enrolled for law. But the second thing was, during my campaign, all the campaign managers were lawyers, law students. And I think they gave me a lot of inspiration. One of them was the chairperson of the campaign task force, Bahutu Robert, is also a lawyer. Then there was Wadamba Innocent, there was Segona Lubega, there was so a lot of lawyers, Gimara Francis. So I felt the old man out. I decided that after completing this degree, I must go back and do something that I feel.
Because certainly because you sounded like them, you know.
Yes, properly.
Lawyers.
People would not know I am not
Yes.
until I told them. That's when I decided, no, I should follow what I am.
Most people actually, you and Segona, they put you in the same bracket.
Really?
Some people struggle to. Sometimes you have the same style, so now I can see where it actually started from.
He tells me so. We've been friends for quite some time. They also call him Mbidde. Sometimes there are people also thinking I'm Segona.
Yes.
But that is it.
Okay. Later to the news was the Mbidde struggle,
Oh yes.
and I'm told that you took really key struggles there. What was the story?
You know, Ugandans are suffering from laxity. A lot of things are happening and Ugandans don't really move. Yet the solution lies in our hands. Today we are looking at the country almost proceeding like a mirage of some sort. In a mirage is where you are looking at water. Practically it happens when you are walking on a tarmac road.
Yes.
You keep seeing some
At a distance.
bit of water at a distance, but each time you arrive closer, you discover it is not there. There is a mirage now in terms of what leadership we are going to have in Uganda. After President Museveni, it was clear you will go by any means, biological or any other. But Ugandans are not even up to the task in terms of identifying solution to a mirage that we are looking at. Now it happened that there were Indians that had proposed to President Museveni that they would take over close to 69,000 acres of Mbidde forest, practically for growth of sugar cane, for purposes of manufacturing sugar. They had generated a lot of reasoning. And the president also defended it vehemently, saying that, you see, and he started equating Uganda to Malaysia, and in terms of national forest cover and how forest cover can be attained by replanting other trees and all that. And so
I think also the import substitution question, yes.
Yes, and I discovered that the country was not up to the task in terms of stopping the president from going ahead with that, because his defense of industrialization, increased and improved industrialization. Like today, you see, people think that modernizing agriculture, of course that will be a debate for another day, but modernizing agriculture by making it land intensive does not add to employment opportunities. Instead, it reduces employment opportunities. Why? Because it is mechanized.
Yes.
Now, but Ugandans don't look at that. When he says modernizing agriculture, then he gives expanses of land to agriculturalists that are foreign direct investors. Then Ugandans say jobs are being created. No, jobs are being lost. People had been employed, whether for subsistence purposes or not, are losing jobs because the land has been amalgamated for creation of an expanse that generally will now be used by the land-intensive agriculturalists at a large scale. Now, it does not create more jobs, because those that have been using the land in the multitudes will not be the ones driving tractors. It is impossible. Then, but of course, people did not.
The issue with the land or mechanization itself?
Now, you must handle everything in totality. The major issues should be foreign direct investment should not be applied in an area where a country, one, has got a direct access to foreign market, two, in the food sector. Impossible. You don't allow foreign direct investors in the food sector. That is bad. The agriculture sector must be a preserve of an indigenous base economy. If you have got a government that thinks about the people, when you invite me for purposes of teaching economics, I will come here and I will tell Ugandans where we are going wrong.
So other sectors,
now during that time, other sectors you can. But where we have a direct access for a foreign market, like under the African Growth and Opportunity Act, you can't have a foreign direct investor. Their quotas are closed wherever they are coming from. They are opening them from Uganda. So instead of Uganda becoming a stopover of resources, it becomes a roundabout for siphoning and reopening their own quotas by the other means. So here, the Mbidde forest, the president was already up in arms. He had already accepted. We had reached high stages of having it given out. I decided that now, as a leader of Uganda Younger Democrats, we must start some state of ungovernability until the forest is left out. So we started, but you see, we were not members of parliament, and you see, Ugandans now at the time, and of course even today, they highlight and exalt a leader more than any other person who has not attained the kind of pedigree that that leader is presumed to have attained. Even if that leader, for example, would be stupid. You see that,
as long as it's popular.
Of course, because you see most of the village meetings, they can invite a councillor to share some bit of wisdom with you, even when he is not brilliant.
Yes.
But because he's a councillor, they assume there is wisdom entrenched in the vote or the ballot that has been given to him. Now, we started a process which started like just media briefings, building up momentum. Then we got people on board. There was a member of the Buganda Luchiko who was a Wichitiwa Kabuza Mukasa. The next meeting he joined us. We said, now this thing is catching fire. John Kenny Jam was a member of parliament. He joined us. He was a member at that time.
At the time?
Yes.
With his party or?
No, he came and attended the meeting. He was representing Rubaga South at the time.
Okay.
I think he was replaced by the daughter. Then afterwards, I think replaced by Katol Wama, like that.
Okay.
So, when he joined, it became now a very serious matter. Our meetings culminated into seeking to have a meeting with the Indians, because we had now identified that the Indian community should definitely prevail upon their own colleague, Meta, with a view to stopping him from trying to destroy Mabira. We started holding press briefings even closer to Mabira Forest itself, but of course police was always against us. The IGP at that time was General Kaihura. Now, we sought to have a meeting with the Indian community. They gave us some representatives. We told them. Now we started having meetings with them. Of course, then we had a meeting with the spokesperson of Kampala State Traders Association. He joined the meeting. We started having a proper crusade. That is when now we created a date for a demonstration. Now, the demonstration, we wrote to police. They thought it was going to be something smaller. So they accepted that we would demonstrate. Now, as an afterthought, they started changing now the route. But we maintained the route. I can tell you that there are things that happened. Now we started meeting members of parliament. We got the member of, we said, now who is the member of parliament but the shadow minister for environment? Now she was Honorable Beatrice Anywa. We invited her. So the one that later on was christened Mama Mabira.
Yes.
Of course, when members of parliament joined, it became now their own project, and I think it worked. So we started again drumming and stamping up support for that demonstration. The date, now we started a countdown briefing. That day, I remember, because we remained consistent with our route, we attended. I remember there was Radio 1. I appeared together with the IGP on Radio 1. It was a radio program. He was talking about a route and I was talking about another route. And I was fearing that I was going to be arrested while getting outside the radio station. Incidentally, they did not arrest me, and the date was the next day. What we saw up to today, I've never seen it. Every route, we saw people coming to join the ground where we would now commence our own trek to Clock Tower. Tower. Now we decided that we were going to start at railway opposite Petro in the middle of Kampala and trek now to the Clock Tower and address the people. Now, I don't know what happened, because when we were taking off, they shot me, but with a rubber bullet, which hit me by the forehead, and I fell down. So I got unconscious. The group started moving, I think. While on the way moving, people were now very angry with the Indians, because the Indian was the one by 2 Indians were killed. Others had to be ferried to the police for their safety by government. People were angry. People were shot. It was a very heavy, but you can imagine that every university, every road brought people to join us in the cause. This is something that people need to know. That when you indicate consensus in terms of unwillingness to accept certain things, government will control. That is what happened. Up to today, nobody touches that forest. And I can tell you, nobody will ever.
Was it the power of media at the time that mobilized?
Both media and clearly the people's resolve.
Issue being really
because people joined us and they owned up the project. Of course, I was the first the next day to be arrested together with the spokesperson of Kasita, charged for murder. But because I had been shot right from inception, and clearly I did not take a part, so there was, we call it alibi. There was glaring absence of my own self at the scene of the murder. So they changed they amended the charge sheet. Yes. Do the people know what to expect from government? If you still have voters that thank government for a road, then you know that the relative political maturity of the people is still low to adapt themselves to a changed state of affairs. For me, I don't look at him as the son of who. I am looking at the process propping him up. Yes.
So not the person,
No,
or the process.
not at all. The person actually is my friend even. But I don't want a process where government is delivering a president. Yet we have got prescribed procedures through which we can have leaders.
He still has something to tell you, young lawyers that are considering, joining the profession. But we are glad that he's a seasoned politician also. We could also get the side of that. We're also glad that while last week we celebrated World Journalists Day, he's one of them. He could actually also drop a few lines in case there's something that actually changed in times. Thank you very much.
You're watching a Hit TV